Hello everybody. So today we're going to be looking at distance and midpoint formulas, and then we're also going to be taking a look at circles. So this video we're going to look at the distance formula, the midpoint formula, and then we're going to look at the standard form and general form of the circle's equation, and then try to find the center and radius of that specific circle given whatever equation they give us. So let's start with a distance formula. Distance formula. So what's going to happen is you're going to be given 2 points. And your job is to take those 2 points and plug it into the distance formula here. So you're going to subtract your x values and then square them, subtract your y values and square that, and then add them together, and then you're going to simplify. And you're going to simplify in one of 2 ways. You're either going to simplify the radical, which means you need to make sure there's no perfect squares that are still in there, or you're going to simplify by actually giving the decimal version. So those are the 2 ways that you're going to see your questions being asked. So just make sure when you are doing your problems and everything, you notice that if it's asking for simplified radical form, you take that all the way down. If you leave it with the square root of 32, you will not get the correct answer because 32 can be rewritten as 4 square roots of 2. So please make sure you are paying attention to that. Also, when you do the distance formula, we only focus on the principal square root. We do not care about the negative because we are talking about distance. And when we talk about distance, we always measure distance in positive numbers. So please make sure your answers are always positive. I don't care about the negative one for this one. So let's take a look at this. Use the distance formula to find the distance between -1 and -3 and 2, 3. Express your answer in a simplified radical form and then round to 2 decimal places. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to take my distance formula here and I'm going to input my points. Once I input my points, I'm going to come over here and clean up that inside. And then once I clean up that inside, I get my answer. Now, I have to make sure that there are no perfect squares that are inside the factors of 45. And if you think about it, 45 is the same thing as 9 times 5. Well, 9 is a perfect square, so I have to take care of that. So when I write my final answer, I write it as 3 square roots of 5, which is the same thing as roughly as 6.7. Okay? So make sure that if it's asking for a simplified radical form, you take it down into this format here, because if you leave it as this, it's going to count it wrong. It wants it into this piece right here. So I have one for you to try. So find the distance between -4, 3 and 9, 15. So take a couple of moments, hit the pause button, and try this problem. So do that right about now. All right, welcome back. So let's see how you did. If everything is done correctly, you should get the square root of 313. There is nothing else I can do with the square root of 313. So I am done at that point. So you just leave it alone. All right. Now, moving on, let's talk about midpoint formula. Midpoint formula is, again, you're going to be given 2 points. And what you're going to do is you're going to add your x values together and divide that by 2. Add your y values together and divide that by 2. And that's going to give you your midpoint of your line segment. So basically what you're doing is you're taking an average of the 2 x coordinates and the average of the 2 y coordinates when you're doing this. So add, divide by 2, add, divide by 2. Let's take a look-see. So use the midpoint formula. So we have 1, 2 as the first point and 7, 3 as the second. So again, here's your midpoint formula. I'm going to plug this into our midpoint formula and I wind up with this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up. So 7 plus 1 is 8 divided by 2. Then -3 plus 2 divided by 2, that'd be -1. And I get that. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4. So make sure you take care of that piece as well. So notice that this negative 1/2 is not negative 0.5. Do not put these in decimal forms, fractions only. If you put it in decimal form, Blackboard will count you wrong. You need to make sure that you are in fraction form. So here's another example for you. 3, 6 is my first one. 17, negative 6 is my second. Again, plug it into the formula here. And notice I get 0 over 2 for 1. That is absolutely a-okay. There is nothing wrong with having a 0 in the numerator. That just means that 0 is going to be your answer. It means that you're going to be crossing the x-axis or the y-axis depending on the placement. And it is okay to get both of them equal 0. And so if you're taking a look at that, if I give you, say, negative 2, 4, and then I give you 2, negative 4, I am going to meet at the origin. Okay, so when you're looking at this, if I was to graph this, the midpoint would be at the origin, which would be 0, 0. And that is an acceptable answer. So don't get worried if you wind up with an answer that says 0, 0 as your midpoint answer. All right. Let's move on to circles. So we're going to start off in standard form. So first off, a circle. Circle is a set of all points in a plane that are equal distance from a fixed point called the center. The fixed distance from the circle's center to any point in the circle is called the radius. So if I have a circle here and I have a center, so notice the dot here in the center to the edge all the way around, doesn't matter where you go, is always going to be the same distance regardless of where you're at on the outside or on the circumference of the actual circle. Okay, so that's what this is saying. It's saying that a circle is all set of all points in a plane that are equal distance from a fixed point, which is the center, which is that dot there right here in the middle right here. And then from the dot to the outside of the circle, that is your radius. And so that's always going to be the same amount regardless of what point you pick on the circle itself. So standard form of an equation. Standard form of the equation is when you're given the center, which is in the form of HK, and your radius is R. So here's what you need to realize. Notice here where it says negative H. So if your center that they give you, if that is a positive number, then when you write it into the formula, it's going to be a negative number. If your point that they give you, if either one of them is negative, so when you put it into the equation, that turns it positive. So basically, when you stick it into the equation, you are going to get an opposite sign. And then you have your radius over here. Now, mind you, my radius, this is actually not the radius, it's the radius squared. So if I'm giving you this and I'm asking you to write the center of the circle and the radius, you cannot say that my radius is whatever number is there. So for instance, let's say that this r squared here was a 20. I cannot say that my radius is a 20 because that's not a true statement, because really that 20 is r squared. My radius, my r, is the square root of 20. So you have to take that square root. And you have to simplify that square root as well. So this actually winds up being 2 square roots of 5. That winds up being what your radius is. So don't get caught up when you see a number sitting here and you're in standard form thinking, oh, that's my radius, because that's not a true statement. It's your radius squared. And that's one of the key things that a lot of people make a mistake on. So just keep that in mind, okay? So let's take a look here. Write the standard form of an equation of the circle with a center of 0, negative 6 and a radius of 10. So when I am doing this, I know they gave me a point and another one, x1, y1, and they gave me a radius. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to plug that into my equation here. And when I do that, I get this. So notice if it's a 0, it's just going to stay 0. But notice that this piece right here, I have a negative and negative. And now I'm going to clean this up. And I wind up with that, which means I get that. So notice here on your x value, notice it doesn't say plus or minus the 0. That is okay. And this is only for when your x or your y point, that coordinate in there, it is only when it's 0 that you don't have to have this piece right here. Okay. So notice I have the x minus 0. I do not have to keep that. And when you plug this into your Blackboard answer, if you plug this in, it's going to mark you wrong. So you need to understand that these two mean the same thing. All right. Also notice I have my negative and negative here. So when I do that, I wind up with a positive answer. So just, watch your signs. That's the best and easiest thing I need to remind you of, is to watch your signs. So take a moment, pause the video. What I want you to do is I want you to give me the standard form of the circle with the center at -2, 3, and with a radius of 4. So go ahead and hit the pause button now. All right, so let's see how you did here. If you did everything correctly, that's what you should wind up with. All right, took my 2, plugged it in, negative and negative is a positive. My 3 just goes straight in and it stays negative, and then I just squared my 4 to get my standard form. All right, so now let's go backwards. So they give me the standard form and I want to find its center. So what you need to remember is, when you have a negative or a positive number here, that means that part of the coordinate's negative, and when you have a negative number, that part of the coordinate's positive. So my center is going to be at -3, 1, and then take the square root of the 4, and that gives me a radius of 2. So remember, one more time, whatever number you see here inside the parenthesis, it's the opposite when you're looking at the actual center, okay? So take a moment and pause the video after you give me the equation of, not the equation, but identify the center and the radius. Then let me know and hit the unpause button and keep going. And pause it now. All right, welcome back. So let's see how you did. If you did everything correctly, you flip the signs for the center. Notice my radius here is a square root of 12. Well, I can't keep it like that because I have 4 times 3, and that turns it into 2 square roots of 3. All right. So let's talk about the last part here, general form. So what's going to happen is you're going to be given, everything is going to be on one side and everything is going to be set to 0. So what you're going to have to do is they're going to want you to find the standard form. So the very first thing you need to do is you're going to take this f value, whatever this value is right here, and you're going to move it to the other side. And then once you do that, you're going to collect your x terms, and you're going to collect your y terms, and you're going to complete the square. Okay, so that's how you do this. You're going to complete the square when you're doing this. So let's take a look at it. So write this in standard form. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this 1 over to the other side, and then I'm going to collect my terms. So you should be looking at something that looks like this. And then I'm going to complete the square for the x terms and complete the square for the y terms. So if you remember completing the square, I'm going to start with my x terms. So I'm going to come over here and complete the square. So I have to identify my b, divide that by 2, then square it. So that's going here. But remember, if I'm adding something over here, I need to add something over here. So you have to make sure you stay balanced. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the y value. Identify my b, divide that by 2, and then square it. Add that here, and then add that here. And then what's going to happen is that you're going to factor this, and then factor this piece right here. And when you factor, you wind up with that. Oh, I made a typo. I did. So let me fix that real quick. So that's actually a negative right here. And then over here, that should be a positive. Sorry about that, guys. So remember, your b divided by 2, when you put that in here, whatever this is here, that goes here. Whatever this is here, that goes here. And then I'm going to add these together, and that gives me that. And so if I'm asking you, well, on top of this, fine, I've got this in standard form, so now what's my center? I wind up with, again, a typo because I based it off of what I had written. So let me fix that real quick. Where'd it go? Let's see. So this one's going to be a negative. And then that one's going to be a positive. Okay. So just pay attention to that. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to make a mistake. We're all human. So make sure basically whatever's right here, this is your center. That b divided by 2 will be your center. And then the square root of whatever this is combined will be your radius. So let's try it again. I know I made some mistakes, but let's see if you can try this one on your own. So give you a couple of minutes. What I want you to do is hit the pause button, but I want you to write this in standard form. So remember, combine your x's or collect your x's, complete that square. Collect your y's, complete that square. Make sure whatever you're adding that you're doing it to both sides. And then don't forget to, if I'm asking you for the center, take that square root and everything else, okay? So hit your pause button now. All right, welcome back. So, taking a look at this, let's see how you did. It's a mystery. There it is. So again, if you did everything correctly, and you've gone through the whole entire process, this is actually what you wind up with. Okay, so I completed a square over here. I completed my square over here. I wrote my center. Remember, sign change for both. I get 36 as an answer here. To find my radius, I take the square root of that, and I get a 6. All right. So just be aware when you're going through this, pay attention. That b divided by 2 is what should go here on both. And then your radius, don't forget to take the square root. All right. So don't forget, make sure you are sending me remind questions or emails or whatever else. Don't forget that handy dandy little button called Ask Your Instructor if you have any questions or whatever. And that is it for this video. I hope everything is going well, and I will talk to you soon. TTFN. Ta-ta for now.